easy for a person to sit and think about what they want their life to become, and in doing so, feel as though they have already taken a meaningful step forward. The mind has a remarkable ability to simulate progress, to create the feeling of movement without requiring any real movement at all. A person can spend hours considering plans, imagining outcomes, and organizing ideas, and at the end of that time, feel as though something has been accomplished, even though nothing in their actual life has changed. Now let me tell you why this is dangerous. The feeling of progress can satisfy the desire for progress. When that happens, the urgency to act begins to fade, and the person becomes comfortable with the idea of change instead of committed to the process of change. Thinking becomes a substitute for doing, and over time, that substitution becomes a habit that is difficult to recognize because it feels productive while producing nothing. Somebody says they're working on something, but really what they've been doing is thinking about it, talking about it, or planning it. Now, there is value in thinking, and there is value in planning, but only when those things lead to action. If thinking does not lead to action, then it is not progress. It is postponement dressed in a more respectable form. It allows them to stay in motion mentally while remaining still physically. It is entirely possible for someone to become very busy in their mind while their life remains unchanged. They can analyze their situation, break it down, discuss it, and revisit it again and again, all while the same conditions persist. The mind becomes active, but the results remain inactive, and this creates a gap that often goes unnoticed because the activity feels real. Think about how often people imagine a better future. They picture themselves in a different position, with different habits, different results, and a different sense of confidence. That picture can be vivid, and it can be motivating. But if that picture is not followed by action, it slowly becomes a place of escape rather than a blueprint for change. Instead of using the image to guide their behavior, they begin to visit it as a way to feel better about not changing. There is a difference between using imagination as a tool and using it as a replacement. When you use it as a tool, it points you toward what needs to be done next. When you use it as a replacement, it allows you to experience the reward without paying the price. Over time, that habit weakens the connection between your desire and your discipline, and you begin to expect results without the necessary effort. The gap between what you think about and what you actually do is where most of the problem exists. It is not that you do not know what you want, and it is not that you are incapable of improvement. Most of the time, you have already identified what needs to change, and you have even spent time considering how to change it. The issue is that your thinking does not translate into doing, and without that translation, nothing moves forward. You might spend days thinking about getting in better shape, organizing your finances, learning a new skill, or improving your discipline. You may gather information, create plans, and even set intentions. But until you take a single action, your situation remains exactly as it was before. The calendar does not respond to intentions, and circumstances do not shift because of thoughts alone. Action is the only thing that begins the process of change. There is a tendency to wait for the perfect moment to act, as though clarity must be complete before you begin. But clarity often comes from action, not before it. You may believe you need to have everything figured out before you start, when in reality, it is the act of starting that begins to reveal what needs to be adjusted. Waiting for certainty becomes another form of delay, and that delay keeps your life in the same place. If you want to understand why your life has not changed, you have to look closely at the difference between what you have been thinking and what you have been doing. The answer is not hidden, and it is not complicated, but it is often uncomfortable to acknowledge. It requires you to admit that your intention has not been matched with action, and without that match, no progress can occur. Nothing changes until you replace intention with action. A thought may point the way, and a plan may organize the steps, But neither of those moves you forward until you put them into practice. The shift happens the moment you stop preparing to change and begin to change, even in the smallest way. That is when the process truly begins, and that is when your life starts to move in a new direction. And once that action begins, it is what you do repeatedly that starts to shape your life. It is not the rare burst of effort that defines your direction, but the ordinary actions you carry out day after day. When those actions remain the same, your results remain the same. And over time, that repetition builds a pattern that becomes difficult to break, not because it is impossible, but because it is familiar. Familiarity has a quiet kind of power. It does not demand attention, and it does not announce itself as a problem. But it steadily keeps you within the boundaries you have grown used to. Even when those boundaries are limiting, they feel safe because they are known. You know what to expect. You know how things usually go, and that predictability can create a sense of comfort, even when it comes at the cost of progress. Many people believe that recognizing a problem is enough to begin solving it. You can clearly see what is not working, and you can even explain why it is not working. But recognition alone does not change behavior. You may understand that your habits are holding you back, and yet continue to follow those same habits because understanding and action are not the same thing. Awareness does not automatically lead to adjustment. There is a tendency to return to what feels natural, even when what feels natural is no longer serving a useful purpose. You might decide to change your routine, to improve your discipline, or to approach your day differently, but when discomfort appears, you drift back to what you know. That return is not always a conscious decision, and in many cases, it happens quietly, through small choices that seem insignificant in the moment, but are powerful in their repetition. A routine is built from those small choices, and once it is established, it begins to operate with very little effort. You do not have to think about it, because it has become automatic. That can be useful when the routine is productive, but when the routine is unproductive, it creates a cycle that continues without much resistance. You may want different results, but your routine continues to produce the same outcomes, because it has not been changed. Comfort often disguises itself as stability. You might say that things are steady, that you are maintaining, or that you are simply being consistent. But there is a difference between maintaining progress and maintaining a position that is not improving. Stability can be valuable when it supports growth, but when it prevents growth, it becomes another form of being stuck, even if it does not feel that way at first. It is important to understand that repetition is neutral. It does not favor improvement or decline. It simply reinforces whatever you repeat. If you repeat habits that lead to growth, then growth becomes more likely. If you repeat habits that lead to stagnation, then stagnation becomes more likely. The pattern itself is not the problem. The content of the pattern is what determines the result. You may wonder why your situation has not changed, while continuing to follow the same daily structure that created your current situation. You wake up at the same time, approach your day in the same way, respond to challenges in the same manner, and end your day with the same habits. Over time, that consistency produces a predictable outcome, and that outcome reflects the pattern that created it. Breaking that pattern requires more than intention, and it requires more than temporary effort. It requires a deliberate interruption of what has become automatic, and that interruption must be repeated until a new pattern begins to take its place. At first, that will feel unnatural because it goes against what you are used to. But over time, the new behavior can become just as familiar as the old one once was. The challenge is not only in identifying what needs to change, but in consistently choosing something different when the opportunity presents itself. You may know that you should respond differently, act differently, or structure your time differently. But in the moment, you often default to what is easiest, and what is easiest is usually what is already familiar. That is why change requires attention, especially in the beginning, because without attention, the old pattern continues. If you repeat the same actions, the same results will follow. This is not a mystery, and it is not a matter of chance. It is a matter of consistency. You do not arrive at a result by accident. You arrive there through repetition. When that repetition is examined honestly, it often becomes clear why things have remained the same. To create a different result, you must establish a different pattern. That does not happen all at once, and it does not require perfection. But it does require a willingness to interrupt what has become comfortable and replace it with something more effective. When that begins to happen, even in small ways, the direction of your life can begin to shift because the pattern that produces your results has begun to change. But changing the pattern is only part of it, because every form of progress has a price attached to it, whether you choose to acknowledge that price or not. Improvement is never free, and it never arrives without some form of exchange. It asks for your time, it asks for your effort, and it often asks for discomfort. And the moment those demands become real, you may begin to hesitate, not because you do not want the result, but because you do not want to continue paying the cost required to reach it. It is very common to admire a result while quietly resisting the process that created it. You may look at someone who has achieved a certain level of success and say that you want something similar, but what you are often drawn to is the outcome, not the effort behind it. The outcome appears attractive, while the process appears demanding, and that difference creates a conflict between what you say you want and what you are willing to do. In the beginning, the cost does not always feel significant. You may start with enthusiasm, willing to invest your time and energy because the goal is still fresh and your motivation is still strong. But as time passes and as the effort continues, the cost becomes more noticeable. The early excitement fades, and what remains is the requirement to keep going, even when it is no longer convenient or enjoyable. This is where many people begin to withdraw. Not all at once and not in a dramatic way, but gradually, through small decisions that reduce their level of effort. You might skip a day, delay something, or lower your standards just slightly, and each of those choices makes the cost a little easier to avoid in the moment. But avoiding the cost also means avoiding the result, even if that connection is not immediately obvious. There is a natural tendency to choose comfort over challenge, especially when the challenge does not produce immediate rewards. You might work hard for a period of time and see very little change, and in that absence of visible progress, it becomes easier to question whether the effort is worth it. The discomfort feels real, while the result still feels distant, and in that situation, comfort becomes the more appealing option. Avoiding discomfort may feel like a relief, but it comes with its own consequence. When you consistently choose what is easier in the moment, you are also choosing to remain where you are. The cost of improvement does not disappear. It simply gets replaced by the cost of staying the same. And over time, that cost can become even greater because it includes missed opportunities, delayed progress, and the growing awareness that things are not moving forward. Your results are closely tied to what you are willing to deal with on a regular basis. If you are willing to deal with effort, discipline, and temporary discomfort, then you open the door to growth. If you are not willing to deal with those things, then you limit what is possible, not because you lack ability, but because you are unwilling to meet the requirements that improvement demands. It is important to understand that the process is not designed to be easy, and it is not meant to be avoided. The difficulty is part of what creates the result, and removing that difficulty removes the pathway to progress. You cannot expect to build strength without resistance, and you cannot expect to create change without effort. The process and the result are connected, and one cannot exist without the other. See, most people try to negotiate with the process, looking for ways to reduce the effort while still expecting the same outcome. You might look for a shortcut, trying to do less while hoping for more, but that approach rarely leads to meaningful progress. The process has its own requirements, and those requirements do not adjust themselves to match your preference for comfort. If you want to understand why your life has not changed, you must look at what you have been unwilling to do consistently, not in theory and not in intention, but in practice. The answer is often found in the effort you avoided, the discipline you did not maintain, and the discomfort you did not accept long enough to produce a result. Progress belongs to those who continue to pay the price, even after the excitement fades and the effort becomes routine. It is not the person who starts with the most enthusiasm who moves ahead, but the one who remains willing to do what is required, day after day, whether they feel like it or not. That willingness is what separates those who change from those who remain where they are. Because in the end, your result reflects the price you were willing to pay to achieve it. But even that willingness is shaped by something deeper, because your situation is not defined only by what happens to you, but by how you explain what happens to you. You can face similar circumstances as someone else and arrive at a very different outcome, not because the conditions are entirely different, but because your interpretation of those conditions leads you in a different direction. The story you tell yourself becomes the filter through which you see your options, and that filter influences what you choose to do next. It is common to construct explanations for why things are not working, and in many cases, those explanations are based on real factors. There may be limitations, obstacles, and challenges that are difficult to ignore, and acknowledging those factors can be useful. However, there is a point where explanation can quietly turn into justification, and when that happens, the explanation no longer helps you move forward. It helps you remain where you are. You might say that your progress is limited by your background, your circumstances, your responsibilities, or your past experiences. While those factors may have an influence, the way you frame them determines whether they become obstacles that can be worked around or barriers that feel impossible to overcome. The difference is not always in the situation itself, but in the meaning you assign to it. When you focus primarily on what you cannot control, you begin to overlook what you can control. Your attention shifts toward limitation rather than possibility, and that shift reduces your willingness to act. If the situation is seen as fixed, then action feels unnecessary, and over time, that belief becomes self-reinforcing. You do less, see fewer results, and use that lack of results as further evidence that your situation cannot change. Excuses rarely appear in an obvious form. They are often presented as reasonable explanations, and they can sound convincing even to you. You might say you are waiting for a better time, or that you need to resolve certain issues before you can begin, and those statements can seem practical. However, when those explanations consistently delay action, they serve the same purpose as an excuse, regardless of how they are presented. The way you describe your situation influences how you feel about it, and how you feel about it influences what you do. If you describe your circumstances as limiting and unchangeable, you are less likely to take initiative. If you describe those same circumstances as difficult but manageable, you are more likely to look for ways to move forward. The language you use internally becomes a guide for your behavior, whether you are aware of it or not. Changing the story does not mean ignoring reality, and it does not mean pretending that challenges do not exist. It means choosing to interpret those challenges in a way that allows for action instead of preventing it. You can acknowledge difficulty while still deciding to act, and that decision changes the role that the difficulty plays. It becomes something to work through rather than something to stop because of. Most people try to protect their current position by reinforcing the story that supports it. If you have been in the same place for a long time, you may begin to explain why that position makes sense, even if you are not satisfied with it. That explanation can create a sense of acceptance, but it can also reduce your motivation to change, because the situation has been framed as reasonable rather than temporary. If you want to move forward, you must examine the explanations you have been using and ask whether those explanations are leading to action or preventing it. The goal is not to eliminate explanation altogether, but to ensure that it does not become a barrier to progress. An explanation should clarify the situation, not define the limit of what is possible. The moment you begin to change the way you interpret your circumstances, your options begin to change as well. You may see opportunities that were previously overlooked, and you may begin to take steps that you had been avoiding. The situation itself may not have changed yet, but your approach to it has, and that shift is often the beginning of real movement. The story you tell yourself is either a tool for progress or a reason for delay. It can open the door to action, or it can quietly keep that door closed. Understanding this allows you to take responsibility not only for what you do, but for how you think about what you are doing. And that responsibility is what creates the possibility for change. And this is where you may begin to struggle, because it is not uncommon to take action for a period of time and then feel discouraged when the results do not appear as quickly as you expected. You begin with effort, you make adjustments, and for a while, you move in a different direction. But when the outcome does not immediately reflect that effort, you start to question whether it is working at all. That question, if left unanswered by patience, often leads to stopping. And when you stop, the process that could have created change is interrupted before it has had the chance to produce anything meaningful. Results do not always appear at the same pace as your effort. There is often a delay between what you do and what you see, and during that delay, it can feel as though nothing is happening. You might be making better choices, improving your habits, and putting in consistent work. But because the visible outcome has not yet caught up, it can seem as though your actions are not effective. This is where you may begin to lose confidence in the process. The expectation of quick results can create a false standard that no real process can meet. When you expect immediate change, you measure your progress against a timeline that does not match reality. When that expectation is not met, you may interpret the lack of immediate results as a sign that the effort is not worthwhile, rather than understanding that the process simply requires more time. This misunderstanding causes you to abandon what could have worked if you had continued. Inconsistency is another factor that quietly resets your progress. You might take action for a few days or even a few weeks, and then stop, only to start again later. Each time you stop, you interrupt the momentum you had begun to build. And when you return, it often feels as though you are starting over. The effort is not wasted, but the lack of continuity prevents it from compounding into something greater. Small actions only produce meaningful results when you repeat them over time. A single effort, no matter how strong, has limited impact if it is not followed by continued effort. It is the repetition of those actions that creates change, because repetition allows improvement to accumulate. Without that accumulation, your progress remains minimal, and you may conclude that the action itself is ineffective, when in reality it simply has not been sustained long enough. And what do most people do? You stop once the initial discomfort has been felt. You begin, encounter resistance, and then decide that it is not worth continuing, because the experience is more difficult than you anticipated. What you may not realize is that the early stage of any change often feels the most challenging, because it requires breaking away from what is familiar. If you continue, that difficulty can decrease as the new behavior becomes more natural. But if you stop too soon, you never reach that point. Time plays a critical role in every form of improvement. It is not enough to act. You must also allow time for the results of that action to develop. Just as it takes time for anything to grow, it takes time for effort to produce visible change. When you cut that process short, you are not giving your actions the opportunity to take effect. And as a result, you remain in the same place, not because the action was ineffective, but because it was not sustained. If you want to understand why your life has not changed, You must consider not only what you have done, but how long you have continued doing it. It is possible to take the right actions and still see little change if those actions are not maintained long enough. The process requires both effort and duration, and removing either one limits the result. Consistency is what allows small actions to become significant over time. It is not dramatic, and it does not always feel rewarding in the moment, but it is reliable. When you commit to repeating the right actions day after day, even when progress is not immediately visible, you create the conditions necessary for change to occur. The accumulation of those actions eventually reaches a point where the results begin to show, often in a way that seems sudden, even though it was built gradually. So remember, it is not only about starting, it is about staying. You may begin with the best intentions and the right plan, but if you do not continue, the outcome will not follow. Those who see real change are not always the most talented or the most motivated at the beginning, but they are often the ones who remain consistent long enough for their efforts to take effect. That consistency, maintained over time, is what finally transforms your action into result.